Hello, my name is Jen Frank, and I am a professor in the Department of Engineering Physics here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Engineering Physics is a multidisciplinary department. We have two separate degree programs for graduate students, Engineering Mechanics and Nuclear Engineering and Engineering Physics. Our research is roughly divided into three separate areas, and today I will be giving an overview of the mechanics research within the department. The themes within the mechanics research group range from fluid mechanics, biomechanics, mechanics of materials, to photonics and quantum sensing. Many faculty cross into multiple areas, working on interdisciplinary projects within mechanics, with other researchers in plasma, fusion, or nuclear, or with other researchers in other departments. I'll start off in fluid mechanics with Professor Ricardo Bonazza, who operates the Wisconsin Shock Tube Laboratory. Professor Bonazza straddles all three disciplines within the department by studying the concept of inertial confinement fusion. This envisions raising the temperature and density of deuterium and tritium by imploding a pellet with a very strong shock wave generated by huge lasers. Hydrodynamic instabilities, such as the one seen on the right, develop at the interface between the shell and the fuel, leading to contamination of the fuel by the shell material, which causes reduced yield or no yield at all. The shock tube facility enables generation of high Mach shock waves. The flow physics is captured by state-of-the-art imaging techniques, such as the laser-based planar imaging seen in the black and white image on the right, compared with numerical simulations performed at Lawrence Livermore National Lab. For my own research, I run the Computational Flow Physics and Modeling Lab. We utilize computational fluid dynamics, or CFD, to study unsteady flow physics at high Reynolds numbers. All of my projects are computational in nature and involve large-scale parallel codes run on high-performance computing systems. My students are usually interested in code development, numerical simulations to PDEs, machine learning techniques, and applying these techniques to interesting fluid mechanics phenomena. One example of my projects include flow over seal whiskers. Seals have bumps on their whiskers which make them incredibly good at tracking prey, and turns out this geometry has potential for drag reduction and hydrodynamic sensing in a variety of applications. Other projects include the optimization of flow physics within renewable energy systems, such as wind and hydrokinetic turbines. These projects are highly disciplinary and work with experimental and industrial partners in the renewable energy landscape. Professor Fabian Wolof has a joint appointment between engineering mechanics and math. His research is all theoretical and computational, where he focuses on the fundamental equation that governs fluid mechanics. The Navier-Stokes equation is a nonlinear PDE which has no general solution, forcing researchers to solve it computationally. There are some exceptions, or special cases, in which you can find solutions. A class of these are exact coherent structures, or traveling waves, highlighted here. These solutions can capture some of the physics and provide insight to model chaotic turbulent flows. Next, I'll jump to the biomechanics and mechanics of materials research areas. As I walk through each of these professors' research, keep in mind that there is much crossover between these two areas. Professor Nodbaum studies the mechanics of biological materials and cells. His research is an example of the importance of mechanics in biology and human health. In the movie playing here, a white blood cell is chasing a bacterium. The other cells in the image are red blood cells. When the white blood cell senses the bacterium, it migrates in a specific direction and eventually catches it. Mechanics can also affect cancer development and progression. The cartoon in the lower left shows a cluster of cells in blue representing a tumor. The cancerous cells invade a dense tissue layer and enter the bloodstream. Both invasion and migration are mechanical processes, and if we can control these processes, we can control cancer progression. Lastly, this image contains artificially created blood cells and blood vessels in mice. In order for the natural blood vessels in green to connect with the artificial ones in red, the mechanical properties between the two tissues must be similar. Similar stiffness, fiber density, cell contraction, and so forth. Professor Nodbaum studies the mechanics of these materials and the mechanics of cells themselves, including migration and measuring the forces that cells exert using traction force microscopy and other quantitative analysis techniques. Professor Krohn is an expert in the mechanics of soft materials, which includes biological materials. Her lab uses both standard mechanics techniques and more novel ideas to characterize new materials, or characterize materials newly adapted to biological applications. For example, the images show the response of a hydrogel to mechanical loading. A hydrogel is approximately 95% water and is characterized with optical imaging and digital image correlation, since traditional strain gauges would not work in this case. Professor Krohn is also interested in how mechanical cues affect the way cells behave. Biochemical signals aren't enough. Mechanical cues are also very important. As an example, myocardial infarction is when you have a damaged region of the heart. An open question being addressed is whether one can repair this with new cells. This requires being able to control what the cells turn into, their coordination, and their alignment. Professor Lakes is interested in the mechanics of a range of natural and engineered materials. Examples of prior work on the mechanical properties of bone are highlighted here, which relies on a hierarchical composite structure. Another example is the negative Poisson's ratio, which means when you pull on a material, the cross-section actually gets fatter. Although shown to exist theoretically, no one thought it was possible in a real material until Professor Lakes developed a technique for negative Poisson's ratio foam. The third project in the bottom of the slide demonstrates stiffnesses greater than a diamond by creating a composite material with inclusions that undergo phase transformation. Professor Bronkhorst looks at the properties of materials using theory and computational models. His research studies the failure of metals as well as other new and improved materials that have permanent plastic deformation. He does this computationally with systems of equations that govern the structural evolution of materials undergoing specified loads, thermal or structural loads, and the appropriate boundary conditions. The example on the right shows the mechanical property prediction of an additively manufactured stainless steel or a 3D printed metal under uniaxial tension. He is also interested in more extreme behavior such as high strain rate and high loading impact simulations. These have applications such as high-speed space vehicles, satellites, or ballistics. Professor Thevaraman runs an experimental lab that looks at a new class of metamaterials called non-Hermitian elastodynamic metamaterials. His techniques use energy gain and loss to control the mechanical waves within the material or create wave guides that channel and direct stress waves through the material structure. A real-life application would be ultra-sensitive seismic sensors, ones that can detect vibrations at low levels or from very far away. Although not shown in the slide, the Thevaraman lab also uses microballistic experiments to study the energy absorption of nano and hierarchically structured materials, among other things. This enables the creation and testing of high-performance materials in extreme environments. Last but not least, I draw your attention to research in photonics and quantum sensing, which is led by Professor Jen Choi. Professor Choi's research is centered around experimental atomic and optical physics. The underlying physics of quantum sensing is the discrete nature of electron energies in atoms or atom-like systems, which can be used as sensors and can measure nanoscale changes in magnetic field, strain, and temperature. Developing quantum instrumentation goes hand in hand with photonics research. Photons are needed to manipulate and measure quantum systems. Today's quantum instruments tend to be bulky and complicated, but they have the potential to be miniaturized by engineering nanoscale interactions between light and atoms. Professor Choi is developing photonic elements tailored for interactions with quantum systems, including flat chip-scale polarization optics, which efficiently collect and deliver light from and to atoms, and diamond nanostructures that enhance emission by color centers. Although Professor Choi was the last faculty member on my list, we do have a few affiliate faculty members whose research closely aligns with themes in the department. I've included names and broad research areas here for you to explore on your own if any of these topics interest you. Finally, what I provided here is a very brief sample of projects, and I encourage you to explore faculty websites, publications, lab tour videos, and reach out via email to any faculty member whose research you find interesting. I'm also happy to answer any questions you may have, and I have included my email on this final slide. Thank you for listening.